What's up, dudes? It's me, Pez Flips. And I have a video about something that I was actually thinking about on my run in the last couple of days. And I figured I would make a presentation about it. Specifically, one visualization, one concept of how you might become more flowy, to have a more smooth flipping experience. And I think where a place that can start at is understanding what I like to call W.O.O, or the window of opportunity. So let us confer with this wonderful notes sheet I've made. So here, let's put autofocus on. So here we have our W.O.O, our window of opportunity. And basically, on this spectrum, you have slow motion and fast motion. And ideally, you kind of want to find that sweet spot in the middle. Personally, as I say somewhere later down here, if you're staying on the later half of that, on the slower side, within this W.O.O, you're actually going to have a smoother flip. So something like doing this, right, doing the rollover, you are going to have more fluidity, more smoothness when you can do it in a way that is slower. Because not only does it give you the visual impression of smoothness, but it also gives you time to prepare yourself for the next trick, both mentally and physically. Because you can think about, okay, well, I want to go into this move, but also you just have more time, your W.O.O, your window of opportunity for the transition trick to get to the next trick is also larger. Now, where might things go wrong? Well, there are some complications to this idea, and that specifically is that your W.O.O, it depends on the trick. So you can see here, horizontal, right, or 0G tricks, they're gonna have a smaller W.O.O, right? You can't flex as much as you can in terms of like going slower or going faster. If I'm going to do like a 0G chaplain, for example, I have to go at a certain speed. Otherwise, just by the laws of physics, right, the thing is going to fall down because there's not enough centrifugal force to keep it affixed to my finger, right? Which is basically just saying certain tricks, typically horizontal tricks where your hand is like facing down or something, is a tighter time window, and you're kind of limited into how you can change the tempo of your flipping, right? Whereas, and I have it in the notes here, vertical tricks, so like doing a vertical rollover, I would argue has a larger W.O.O, because I can go faster or slower, and it's generally more forgiving. Now, to further complicate things, we also have the fact that different shapes or different balances are going to change your W.O.O as well. So your window of opportunity, right? If I'm trying to do a fan, right? A fan, I can do a much slower and hold it for a lot longer before it wants to automatically settle itself if I have a blade bias knife, or if I have a knife that has a lot of tip weight, right? This W.O.O would increase, and it would also increase towards the end as well. It would increase in both ways. But lastly, this is the biggest point I want to make. And this is why I thought about it when I was running. So, when I was running, I have started to, I moved to a different place. So I have a lot more hills. And as a consequence of that, I've had to learn, to actually have a proper form when running downhill. But this is also something that I've been thinking about just generally on flat ground. So anyways, when you run, your feet move left and right. And don't talk about my bear dogs, man. But basically, I'm pushing off with my leg kind of behind me, right? And getting my next foot ready to push. But what happens is if I either don't push enough, then my foot's going to lag and I can't get there in time. And then I'm going to have to spend extra energy to try to balance out. And it takes me a couple of steps before I get even again, right? Okay, let's say I push too hard. I push too hard, I go too forward. My foot extends out before me, and I'm actually applying a brake force to myself. And because I pushed out of that window of opportunity, if we're going to apply the same verbiage, I have maneuvered myself in such a way that has made it so that there is a recovery period to get back to a smooth, solid form, right? Because smoothness is speed. And ultimately, when we're applying that to balisong flipping, right, we're thinking about this idea that, okay, if I am flipping, right, and I'm doing a super fast flipping style, right, you just have a lot less time to react to things. And if I'm constantly changing that pace to make it faster or slower, it's not impossible to stay smooth. Rather, I think it's also something that could be experimented more in the hobby, is the change of tempo, but it's something to be aware of that if you have certain tricks that maybe you're not as confident in, or you haven't practiced flipping them slower, when you're then going to piece them into other tricks that you do flip slower, you kind of handcuff yourself, right? Because if I do a really fast rollover, what happens is that knife is moving. There's a lot more momentum. And when I'm going to the next trick, when I'm going to the next rollover or something, I have to either stay the same pace, speed up, or slow down. And it's a lot harder when you have a lot of momentum, a lot of motion. I would argue that it's a lot more difficult to slow down than it is to speed up. Certain tricks will often opt better or worse to be changed in their tempo. Just like I was saying, the 0G tricks, you know, they have a natural inclination for speed, but also that makes them inflexible with where you can use them. Ultimately, the really simple advice is, if at all possible, I try to flip slower than faster. I've made videos about this before. Smoothness is something much easier to attain when you're flipping slower. I'm not saying it's impossible if you're flipping fast. I just think it's a lot more effort and a lot more work, and it's just harder. It's just simply put harder, because the faster you go, the tighter that window of opportunity becomes to actually successfully land the trick that you're trying to do. So this is just something that I figured y'all could think about when you next pick up your balisong and flip it. But yeah, next time you're flipping, think about your pacing, your cadence, keeping a consistent rhythm in your flipping rather than just whatever you've felt comfortable with that trick, right? Try to flip slow, see how slow you can go before the knife starts not behaving as you want to, and then success will follow. maybe with a little bit more practice, but yeah, that's about all I have to say for this one. But if you have any comments, any thoughts about this, I'd love to hear what you guys have to say, or if you have a difference in opinion, if you disagree with me, that's okay, right? This is an open discussion, so I would encourage you to please leave your thoughts in the comments. And if it's unrelated, don't worry. I try to read everyone's comments, and I reply if I feel like there's something I can actually provide of value for as a reply. But yeah, it's been Pez Flips. As always, drink some water and get some good sleep.